My story is something that I thought only happened to other people. Not me, not my family. The feelings I felt, the tears that I cried, and the decisions I needed to make should not be the things normal people need to deal with. But, as I have learned, these things are all too common. My parents live in Netanya, and we often visit and spend Shabbos with them. During one of those Shabbos visits, my wife called me into our bedroom on Shabbos afternoon. Our daughters, aged 10 and 12, were waiting there. My wife closed the door and said, "Your daughters have something to tell you." I had no training or preparation to deal with what I was about to hear, but Baruch Hashem, I acted in a calm and level-headed way. My younger daughter spoke first. She said, "Yesterday, Saba called me into his office and asked me if I liked massages. When I told him that I liked massage, he started rubbing my shoulders. Then he rubbed me on my legs and tush, and he also felt around my underwear. Well, I was numb with shock. I wanted to know more, to verify if this was really true. I asked her if there were any more details she'd like to share. And at that point, her older sister took over and recounted a similar story that had happened to her as well over Shabbos. My father had asked her to help him get some soda from the storage room, and while there, had begun massaging her like he had with her younger sister. My daughters had both been unsure what to do after this experience. Could it be that their loving grandfather, who they had known and trusted their whole entire lives, could be a molester? Was it really molestation, what he did, or maybe it was a mistake? They were confused, scared, and feeling alone. Eventually, my younger daughter confided in her older sister and asked, "Does Saba ever touch you in a weird way?" When the answer was yes, they both knew that something was really wrong, and then they told my wife the story. At first, she didn't believe them. Maybe they misinterpreted the whole thing. But just to be on the safe side, she told them to stick with her at all times, and we'll see what happens. At one point, though, she went to the bathroom, and while there, my father called my younger daughter into his office again. After touching and massaging her, he warned her not to tell anyone. When my wife came out of the bathroom and found my younger daughter crying, she realized it was for real, and at that point called me in. After hearing all these details, I hugged both of my daughters and told them, "You are both holy and pure and have done nothing wrong at all. Your Saba has a big problem." Sometimes older people start doing strange things and they don't realize it. But don't worry, we will protect you and make sure this never happens again. The rest of Shabbos was stressful, to say the least. We kept up a facade of enjoying ourselves and being friendly, but inside we were scared, devastated. We knew already at that time that the lovely family life we had so enjoyed would never ever be the same again. Once we were home, my wife and I rehashed the entire situation. My father was 70. Perhaps he was going senile. Then again, he was clearly lucid when he warned my daughter not to tell anyone. Should we just stay away from my parents and never visit them again? Did my daughters need to see a therapist? Was my father a serial molester and a menace to society? And my poor mom, or was she? Did she know about him all these years? What would happen if I confronted them? Would they get divorced? Would my father commit suicide? Maybe he would kill my mother first and then commit suicide. My mind raced on and on. I was a total mess. I couldn't eat, sleep, or think clearly, and I had no idea what to do or who to talk to. And then I remembered there was this fellow, David Morris. He ran the local tzedakah organization L'man Achai, and he had founded Magen. I knew that there was some controversy about Magen and how to handle child abuse, with respectable Rabbanim in Ramat Beit Shemesh on both sides of the fence. Some were opposed to Magen, and some were in favor. I honestly had never researched the topic, and I didn't have the luxury of doing so at the time, but I knew I needed to protect my daughters, and possibly others, from my father. I knew I needed help. To hedge my bets, I anonymously called Magen's hotline and got through to David Morris. I told him what had happened to my daughters, and when he asked me who the perpetrator was, I broke down and sobbed out the words, my father. He was very supportive and encouraging, and trust me, I needed every bit of support and encouragement I can get. But this is where the real nightmare began. He explained how things work in Israel. My daughters needed to be kept away from my father. They needed to be safe and know they were safe. They also needed to be seen by a professional therapist, a trained and experienced expert who could assess their trauma and then help them get over it without them being scarred for life. To get that help, one would need to report to Israel's social services all the details, including the identity of the perpetrator. At that point, the social services can ask for an exemption so they don't have to report this case to the police. However, as molestation is a crime, there was a distinct possibility of my father being arrested, brought to court, and possibly thrown into jail for many years. In order for the exemption request to possibly be accepted, it would need, at a minimum, for my father to admit his offenses and cooperate fully with the social services. My love and loyalty was split between my father and my daughters. The pain I felt, the sadness I felt, the incredible loss I felt were unbearable. I was completely conflicted. I had visions of my father being humiliated by a public arrest and court case. I imagined him, a kind, 70-year-old man, being roughed up in jail. I imagined my mother crying and crying, and never stopping to cry about the tragedy that had happened in our family. As our situation was complex, my wife and I consulted with a Rav, who in turn suggested we consult with a psychiatrist he personally knew and trusted. This psychiatrist confirmed that we would need to work within the system and make a formal report to Merkaz Haganah. Obviously, we wanted to ensure that my father, who despite what he had done, was treated fairly as possible. I didn't want some crazy court to turn my father into an example, and I just wanted to get my daughter's help, and I also wanted my father to get help as well. Over the next few days and weeks, Magen was instrumental in explaining how the Israeli system works, what we could do to mitigate my father's plight, strategize how to break the news to my mother and to my father, and more importantly, help me understand that sometimes doing the right thing will not make everyone happy, but it has to be done nonetheless. Well, as of today, our story is still in play. It has so far worked out better than I had ever imagined it would. While there is still a lot of pain for us and our family, events among other family members are huge logistical challenges. My daughters are getting the help they need. My father did admit to his wrongdoings and asked to receive treatment, which he is now getting. My wife and I can finally sleep at night knowing that we did the right thing for everyone involved. Although you are now listening to an actor who is sharing my story, please know that I'm a very real person living in Beit Shemesh. I might be your colleague at work. I might sit beside you in shul. You might even know my father as a wonderful, warm, and highly intelligent man, an admired and upstanding member of his community, adored by his family. Before all this happened, Magen was never on my radar as a real organization, or even worthy of my attention. But after experiencing their dedication to providing professional care and support, they have my full attention. And while I hope you never go through what I went through, I hope you give Magen all the attention and support you can. Magen quite literally saved me, my kids, and my whole family.